Okay, thank you all for joining today. I'm your host, Brendusha Kevorkian. The Practitioner Forum session today has as topic best practices in incident management in SMAX. And our speaker today is Dean Clayton. So Dean, please take it away.
Okay, thank you. So hi everyone. So today we're going to cover off, do an overview of incident management, do a little bit of a dive into the capabilities and how it's set up in SMAX. We've also got some incident management. We're going to particularly look at major incident because I think that's quite a good place to look on where you can potentially put some automation in. And obviously around that, we'll just do a little bit about what these sessions are for and a bit of a wrap up at the end. Okay, so first, just about the sessions. So really what these are all about is providing guidance around SMAX processes and capabilities, especially we're obviously trying to cater for a wide audience of different skill levels with the tools. So we do try to aim these at the lower, but also include capabilities and things that may be more advanced amongst you have not come across before. We want to make sure we achieve a common understanding of the terminology and the principles around the tool as well, and that's obviously part of why we do that. And really, it's all about making sure you can get the most out of the products. And then also to obviously share use cases from the customers, and from partners, and also things that we come across within our internal teams as well, and kind of help build best practices around that. So one thing I will say here, and I'll repeat it at the end, is if you have any particular use cases that you've used or have in your environment, we'll be happy to work with you and potentially present that at a future session. So first of all, let's look on incident management. So we'll just do a few slides and we'll talk about the process and the tooling. So really, when we talk about incident management, the goal of incident management really is about restoring normal service and minimizing the overall impacts that we have. It's not about trying to find the root cause, because that's all about problem management. It's about getting things back up and running. And when we're talking about incident management in SMAX, actually that kind of fits across multiple record types. So the two ones that you'll commonly use are the incident record itself, but also IT support request records. And obviously the labels for those can potentially be modified in the system. Now what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the differences between those two record types, just to try and help kind of bed that in about why we have those two different records. So support requests, the IT support requests, or I tend to refer to them as just straight support requests, they're all raised against an end user. So it's an end user that has an issue that is looking for support. They're either going to raise that themselves, maybe through the self-service portal or email or phone in the service desk, or it could be raised on behalf of them, either by a colleague or, again, maybe an agent after going to visit them. Field engineer decides it might be worth raising a ticket for a user, and it's all about restoring it for that particular person and an individual. Classic support requests is obviously things like forgetting password, maybe a faulty laptop, printer not working, those kind of things, maybe not able to access email or other applications. But the key thing is within the tool, and from a service level management perspective, they're measured in the same way, so they're no less significant in what they are, and ultimately it's about restoring the service for that particular customer. And again, a request record itself, that can actually be escalated to become an incident in the system. So when we talk about incident records, what are we saying there? Well, incident records we treat as being raised against a service or a CI. Okay, we're saying it's about something that's going to be raised by the service provider themselves, so that the IT support, should we say, maybe as an agent, maybe a second line support person through the interface, or maybe through an integration with some kind of event monitoring tool or other monitoring tools that you may have. The incident record themselves are going to be raised obviously against those unplanned service interruptions. which affect normal business operations. Now, it may be a case of if you've got a fully holistic environment set up and you've got your event monitoring tool, maybe using our own Ops Bridge to monitor applications and what have you, that would probably raise the incident and have that created as the first record related to it in the tooling. But commonly, we also see a situation whereby a number of users have had the same issue. It's identified by someone in maybe in first line, maybe in second line, and they decided actually we're going to turn one of those into an incident record and escalate it, and basically create a parent record for all those other support requests to be related to it. One advantage, obviously, of doing that means that from a support perspective, you only need to focus on the incident record, and actually once that's closed, that will then basically pass the solution down to the other records and close off, move them to user acceptance for the user to confirm whether they're happy that it's fixed their issue. There's quite a lot of information we've got on this topic, and I've actually got it in our Getting Started guide, and I've got links to that, which I'll talk about later on. And there's also a blog post that we did last year about this particular topic as well. So just to kind of give you a bit of sort of examples of the different types. So if we take some examples from typically that happen in the real world, so users have forgotten their password for a SAP application. Well, actually this one's a service request. There's a question obviously when we talk about the crossover of what a password is between service request management process and incident management process. But ultimately, we tend to see that more of as a service request because this is a standardized approach at how you can deliver that and could be a good option for automation as well. Then if we take another situation where they can't connect to SAP, it's investigated by the help desk agent, and it's obviously maybe there's an issue with something on that user's laptop. That would typically be an IT support request. So it's not something that's the application or the service. It's actually something that the users had individual to them. So there's no need to raise it to an incident record. Potentially it could be done as something that's done at the first line by the service desk, or it could actually go to a second line team that does that. And of course, in those kind of situations where it does go to a second or a third line team, sometimes that might actually spawn knowledge management and potentially look at shifting that resolution and how that's solved left towards the service desk so they could potentially solve it first time, next time. Then if we take another example around maybe an event management, that's one of the SAP application services request. And we're seeing also, that is obviously going to be an incident request, but more than likely that's going to be identified by a monitoring tool. Or it could actually be that maybe there's a second line agent maybe looking at something on the systems, spots the issue and raises the incident for that. And ultimately, that incident will be there. While service, in this example, while the service is still available, there's obviously degradation, and potentially this could end up going towards problem management, look to solve it in the long run. And the final one is following on from that, user calls and report now taking a long time to log into the SAP application. So we can see that incident's already been raised, and in this case, we're going to raise an IT support record for that end user because they raise, they want a ticket for the work for the issue, and we're going to link it to that incident record. Now at that point, there's a couple of options around this. Obviously, the support request by just notifying them, you might decide to close that off and accept the user will be happy to accept to assume that they may be up and running quite quickly, or it may be that they want to keep that support request open until the incident is resolved. And of course, in that case, just by relating it to that incident record, once the incident's moved into its final phase, is resolved, they'll get a notification, and obviously at that point they can obviously check to see if they've still got an issue, and if they have, potentially get their support request reopened or looked at separately from that incident. Okay, so we've kind of talked a little bit about the difference between requests and the incident records. So if we just look at it from a workflow perspective as well, of how that works in the tool. So typically with a support request workflow, you've got the log and classify when the ticket comes through, first line support, and obviously a potential to escalate that ticket. One thing to note, that if a ticket is related to an incident, it will automatically move into the escalate phase to say it's been escalated into it and related to an incident record. The back half of that record is all about the user acceptance and make sure they're happy with what's been done in that particular case. But as you can see, it's all about from an end user's perspective. And in a previous recording we did, we went into a bit more of a deep dive into the support request model. So feel free to watch that recording again if you want a bit more information. If we then take that and look across to the incident workflow, and you can see it's a lot more straightforward. So we've got to, again, log and classify, an initial support and an escalate. But rather than that user acceptance, we've got a straight review and obviously closure. You'll also note we've got a few forwards and backward transitions, primarily between initial support, escalate and review, based on obviously what's happening with that ticket during that life cycle. From a point of view of those transitions, some of those are obviously automatic, either maybe just from log to classify as soon as the record is created. With some of the others, it's dependent on obviously various data being put into the ticket to move it forward. Typically, to go from classify to initial support, you're going to need to assign it to someone and also have it categorized. But that in itself could potentially be automated based on how that's come through to the system. Again, when you're going through to review, primarily it's looking about having a solution value in there. So, again, like we do with a lot of the modules in the system where we've put our out-of-the-box rules, we're trying to put a bit of process automation in there to save you a bit of time. So in those cases where we're not forcing you to set the status to resolve or move it to a particular phase to get it to review, actually just by putting the relevant detail in there, that will pass it through to the review phase. Two other records to make you aware of, record types which are quite useful around incident management. So there's a concept of incident management templates. So these you can set them up and they basically allow you to pre-populate fields on a record, and that can be applied to a new record or it can be applied to an existing record. So you literally get a pop-up, as you can see in the screenshot there. Choose the relevant template and obviously it tells you what fields it's going to populate. That will be a straight overwrite. You lose whatever data was in there previously as part of doing that. But you can do that obviously at any point during the life cycle of the ticket. So even closed tickets. It might be a way to maybe kind of group together from a reporting perspective, groups of tickets, or maybe maybe trying to classify or set up some tickets, standard tickets that come through in a fairly similar way, and maybe you want to pre-populate things like category assignment and various other data related to the ticket. That said, personally, I'm not to say that I'm not a fan of templates. I think they have their place. But for me, the more important record is the next one I'll talk about, which is models. And these are kind of sort of like a supercharged template. Unlike templates, they can only be applied in the log or the classify phase of the record. However, you've got a lot more power and control over this. And I'll actually, one of my use cases, I'll demo this. So with an incident model, not only can you set default values, but also you can apply task plans and have them applied to the incident during its life cycle in the various phases. You can also have custom fields, so similar to user options that you have in the service catalog. You can have those for capturing extra data related to that particular type of model. Likewise, you can have business rules on there as well. So you can have business rules specific to that incident model and the way that record's going to be treated. And again, we'll show that and we'll demonstrate that in the configuration use case a bit later on. As I said, it is locked in the system, and they can only apply an incident model during the log and the classify phase. However, there is a way around that, which I'll demonstrate in the use case. The other thing I want to talk about is obviously the forms on incident management. So these are all the out-of-the-box forms that come with the tool. At the moment, obviously, you can't add any additional forms to those records, but that is something, obviously, from a roadmap perspective, we're looking at. You've got all the standard forms, so obviously the preview form you see on the views. When you're creating a new incident form, you've got a few forms there which are very specific to areas on the record, so maybe looking at the CIs and how they're displayed. The major incident section on the general tab, which is primarily the major incident team in the out-of-the-box. We've also got the previews used for things like search or resolution. The last one on that list, the template one, that one is primarily used obviously for incident templates, also the default values that you see on a model. You can obviously add additional fields onto that, but one thing to be aware with templates and the models is certain of the out-of-the-box fields which aren't on there, they may only be read-only on those particular record types. So custom fields you could potentially add on there, but if they're out-of-the-box fields, a lot of the time they can be read-only if they're not on there already. Okay, so just to kind of summarise before we get into the cooler stuff, as I prefer. So incident records, it's all about restoring that normal service of operations, okay, and reducing the overall impact to the business. It's not about root cause, it's about getting it solved as quickly as possible. Does that mean you could end up having a lot of incidents the same? Yes. Would they then potentially relate to a problem record to resolve the root cause? Of course. Typically we see those as obviously a critical service failure, so something like email has gone down, or is mass impacting for a large number of users. Maybe it's a network has gone in a particular office location, or maybe there's a particular application that's impacted. Likewise, system of records used from an event management system. So the record that comes in from an event management system will always be an incident record for it to then be tracked through its life cycle. Request records that come from end users, so those support requests that end users raise, they obviously can be escalated to create or related to an incident record if required. Okay, who performs this will obviously depend on your company's processes. So there's some companies that I've worked with where actually the service desk don't have the ability to escalate to an incident. They can relate to an existing incident, but primarily if they feel it's something potentially new, they either have to speak to the service desk manager to raise that incident, or maybe assign it to the second line team, who then have the control and decide to determine whether they should be raising an incident record at that point. And again, to reiterate that point, not everything should be treated or escalated to an incident. Okay, the priority support requests are measured in exactly the same way as the incidents. Now, you might decide from a service level management perspective that the target sets for instance may be slightly different to what you apply for support requests, and certainly we have that ability in SMAX for you to do that. But typically, most customers I see tend to keep them exactly the same. And from a point of view of second and third line teams, they'll obviously monitor for support requests that come through and incident records which they may have as well. And finally, those incident models. If you think about the power that we can drive from the service catalogue and the way that you can use the offerings in service catalogue to help drive standardisation and automation on those tickets, you can do a similar thing with incident models. A good way of looking at that is maybe look at a lot of the common incident cases that get raised, maybe quite some common ones, which ultimately should be raising problem records, but you might have standardised the approach on how you deal with them. Maybe it's something simple as doing a server reboot, or maybe password resets for users. There's a good starting point for starting to put some automation within incident management. And I think we all rather prefer to deal with the real issues and solve them properly than having to spend a lot of time firefighting those issues that come through. Okay, further reading on these. So we've obviously got the SMAX Application Help Center. With our May release that came out, the Application Help Center URL has been updated to reflect that. You can still, if you see some of our old recordings which have the old Application Help Center, they're still available. But obviously we have a new one with every release. We've also got a blog post on the community about the difference between request and incident management, just to help sort of highlight some of those points. The Getting Started guides, which we've had as PDFs for a while, we're now starting to get them put onto our main Microsoft Docs website. So there's a link which obviously will PDF this presentation so that you can use the links, but it's available from the docsmicrofocus.com website. And you can go and read those online rather than having them as a separate PDF. That said, if you want the PDF, or maybe you want to get hold of the configuration guide, which isn't quite available yet, that's available from the Learn site, where obviously the same places where these recordings are put. Okay, so done a lot of talked a lot about the incident management process. Let's start to look at some configuration use cases and give you a little demo of some of the capabilities we can do in the tool. As always, when we do these use cases, we try to sort of categorize them a little bit using the terminology crawl, walk, run. So crawl being something that's fairly simple, something you can set up quite quickly, maybe a starting point for a more complex use case, but just kind of show you some of the features that may be useful that you could utilize within your organization. Walk is obviously going to be a little bit more complex. And may require on some data as well as part of that configuration, and typically may take a little bit longer to set up. And then obviously where we're talking about more complex configurations, and obviously if you're going to put it in your production environment, you're going to want to do some proper configuration, look at how it fits within your organization, and obviously do some relevant testing in your development environment. Okay, so crawl, mark as a major incident and escalate. So, as part of the process, when an incident is set as a major incident, the record should move to the escalate phase. This is based off a use case I had with a particular customer, whereby any incident record should be marked that it's a major incident, should automatically be put into the escalate phase and not be kept in that initial support phase. So, in this example, the incident's in the initial support, and the agent sets the major incident flag, and it automatically moves the ticket to the escalate phase. In this example, we're actually going to use one of the new features that's in the main release, which is in relation to custom actions. So custom actions historically have only ever been able to launch URLs. With the main release, we've now got the ability to run business rules off those. So let's run the video and walk you through it. Okay, so as an agent, I've got my ticket, and I'm having a look at the ticket. We can see that it's currently not marked as a major incident, so the little flag isn't marked against it, and it's in the initial support phase. What we're going to do is we're going to click our custom action, mark as major incident. That then is going to save the record and refresh it, and in doing so, if we now look at our major incident section, we can see we've got the major incident tick, and we've also moved it to the escalate phase. Quite simple, but hopefully quite effective. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first thing I did was I added them, for the point of this demonstration, I added a major incident flag onto the form. In the out of the box, it's not actually on the form, but I thought it'd be quite useful just to help, so we've got that visual cue whilst we're running these demos. So selected a particular form that used the major incident team section and added a field to the form just like any other field. Then we went and created our new custom action. So we go to the custom actions tab for the particular record, add a new custom action. As you can see, I called it major incident. We've got a display name, obviously, which is language independent, and I ticked the enable workflow. And you can see that I also set it as a primary, so that means it was at the top line rather than in the drop-down list, and also specified it so it wasn't on the grid page, which is something you might want to do, depending on how you want to work with those particular tickets and how you want to work. The key thing here is the fact that we've ticked that enable workflow box there. What that does is that basically enables 2 additional custom fields on that record type. Those custom fields are called custom action count and custom action name. So basically, every time a custom action is run of a particular type, the count is changed for that particular record type. So in the process and rules tab, what we've done is I set up a rule, a standard set multiple fields rule that's on the initial support phase, and basically said if in the current update the custom action count is changed and the custom action name is major incident for that change, then set the major incident flag to true and move it to the escalate phase and save that, and that's it. And there's our first one. So our second one, major incident model, creates a problem record. In this case, we're going to do something a little bit more complex. We're going to use the model record. In this one, what we're going to do is we're going to have an agent manually apply an incident model in the classify phase. They're going to go through and then obviously populate some extra details as part of that. And when the incident is moved to the review phase, once the solution has been added, we're going to have it so the model automatically creates a problem record that's related to the incident. Okay, so let's run the video. So I've set up obviously a ticket that I want to look at. And in this case, we look at the workflow. Obviously, it's still in a classify phase. As you can see here, we've got no tasks associated with it, and we've got no related records either, so nothing that's dependent on it, or no problems records raised. In this case, we're going to look at the sort of check that it's not as a major instance. That's fine. And if we go and look at the incident model, we're going to select the major incident model that we've created. You'll see that the major incident flag has already been set, and just for make sure that we cover everything, we're going to set a couple of extra fields so that the record will make sure it moves through. You'll also see here that we're getting some predefined selections for the category with the way the tool's working with the analytics to try and help push it forward. By saving the record, we've automatically moved to the escalate phase based on a similar rule that we had set in our first example. And you can see in the review phase, we've also got a task that's going to create a problem record. So let's have a solution to the record and move it forward. So we're going to do some root cause investigation around it. So obviously we want to do a problem record. We save the record, and on saving the record, you can see here now that the workflow, we move to the review phase. We go to our task plan. Our task has been completed, and we can see we've got our problem record that's been created and passed the details across to it for it to be properly classified and dealt with. And obviously, it's creating that, it's pulled some of the initial data across and obviously set it as a medium priority ticket. So how do we set that one up? Well, first and foremost, we need to create an incident model. So the first thing that we did is I created an incident model, which I call major incident. And I just added the task plan to the review phase. I did a straight standard, like any task plan in the system, obviously it allows you to run business rules. And I did a standard automated task, create record with relationship. In this case, I set the relationship type to incident caused by problem. And then I set the values which you can see in the screenshot, which in an out-of-the-box system are the fields that are needed to populate to actually create the record. So obviously the title, the symptoms, so the description from the ticket, the category, obviously the service, and the urgency of the record. After setting that task, the other thing that I did on the incident model is I added a rule to set the major incident tick box to true. So just a straight set field rule, and obviously just in a case of it not being true, then we'll set it to true. After that, one of the other things that we wanted to do was obviously push it based on our earlier one where we did a custom action. And we had the tick box that moved it to escalate phase. This is kind of working in a similar kind of way, but maybe we're not doing it by clicking the button. Obviously, we just set it by using the model. So I wanted to move it to the escalate phase in the same way. So in this case, I added obviously a business rule, slightly different to the previous one. So it wasn't using the if condition based on the custom field. We're just doing it straight on whether the major incident checkbox Boolean field has been set to true, and if so, set the phase to escalate. Save the rule, and again, we're done, and that's all set up and working as a good starting point for a major incident process. Okay, so our final one is actually having a major incident model applied automatically. So this is kind of going the next step with that. So based on the number of records that are related to our incident record, so thinking about those support requests that come through and that are potentially raised, we want to, customers working with wanted to be able to set the incident to be a major incident if a large number of support requests were related to it. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I've set it to 10 records, but obviously when we get to the configuration point, you can obviously have the ability to change that to be whatever value you want it to. In the demo, what we'll do is we'll relate some records to the incident record, and we'll see that it'll automatically apply the major incident model. As an extra step, we've also added in a comment stating this has happened by the system into the comments field. So anyone that may be following that ticket is made aware, either for a notification or email, to say there's been an update to the ticket and it's been now triggered as a major incident. So let's run the video. So here in review, you can see we've got a number of incident tickets that are sitting in our initial support. we can see that at this point the incident model is a greyed out field, as you'd expect because of the out of the box rule. We can also see that the major incident flag is ticked. And if we look at the workflow and say we're in initial support, obviously we don't have any task plans associated with it. If we look at the related records, we've got 7 that depend on it. So let's add a few more to get over that threshold of 10. So we'll look at some support requests. Let's find a couple of virus-related ones, and we'll add them onto the record and relate them to it. Obviously, this process could be done from the other way, with someone relating the support request to the incident from the other side. But for speed, for this demo, I've done it this way. So we've got our 3 records. That should make us hit the threshold. Let's click OK and add those. We've got our 10 records there. Let's save and close and come out of the incident record, and we'll refresh our view. You can see that actually it's already jumped, and something's happened with that particular record. So if we click on the record now, we see actually something's happened with it. Okay, so if we scroll down, we can see that the incident model has been applied. So it now says major incident in the incident model, but it's still greyed out. We can see that the major incident tick box has been ticked as well. And we can see we've gone into the escalate phase. And if we look at our task plan, our problem record is ready to potentially be created in the review phase. We've got our 10 records as before. So next thing we'll do is, as before, we'll just finish this off and we'll move it through to the closure. So we'll just put a patch slide and we'll set it root cause to be determined. Okay, so let's save that. Oh yeah, of course. And also, just to make you aware, there's the comment that we said about the major incident being done. So let's just make sure we've got our fields all set. Yeah, let's do the assignment. Of course, expert group is a mandatory field at this point. So let's set that. And let's save the record. And at that point, the record's now moved through to the review phase. We can see the task plan, just like before, has been happened, and we've got our problem record as well. They're sitting in classification, and again, with the values set as we wanted to before. Okay, so how do we do that one? Because obviously, out of the box, we can't set a model after a record has been created. So, first thing that we're going to do is we need to add an extra transition into this tool. We need to put a transition between initial support and classify so that we can allow our ticket to go back to the classify phase for us to be able to apply an incident model to it. So we'll do that, we save the workflow. Then, after that, what we want to do is we want to do a set multiple field rule at the highest level of the process. So this is basically to set a number of fields on the record to have them update. So in this case, we're looking at the current update. Number of related records new value is greater than the current update number of related records old value. So how many related records to the ticket, and assuming it's gone up. And the number of records is greater than or equal to 10. And at the same time, the major incident ticket is not set to true. So at that point, we're then going to set some fields. So we're going to move the impact. We're going to change that from to site or department, from single, or in the example in the video, multiple users. We're going to move the phase ID back to classify, and we're going to set the incident model to major incident. Now, some of you may realise that with how I set that condition, that maybe it's not absolutely exactly what we want in the real world. And that's correct, because what I've done is I've used the number of related records value, which is the total number of related records, irrespective of whether they're dependent or dependees of the particular ticket. So that could be a mixture of instance-related support requests, changes, and problem records in either direction. Typically, probably what you want to do is you'd probably want to do based on the number of related support requests and do a count on that. And that's actually the information about potentially how to do that is actually in the documentation and in the application help center. But for this, I just thought it'd be a bit of an easier one to show and to demonstrate. Okay. After we've created that one rule, we need to create a second after change rule, which is basically to add a comment. So in this case, we're basically triggering it off the fact that the major incident flag has changed and is now set to true, and the number of related records is greater than 10. In this case, we just add in a comment. Let's put in this case something relevant to say that it's been now marked as a major incident because of the number of related records, and set it as system and obviously public so it gets available to everyone else, and obviously set it as a action type as just status update. Again, in the real world, you can set those to whatever values make sense for the organisation. And obviously with that, we're then hooked into the instant model process that we had in the previous phase, in the previous use case, which allows us to do the problem management and everything else. Okay, so that's our use cases. We've rattled through them quite a bit. So, just as we do a quick wrap up of some of the guides and the help, and then we'll do a quick questionnaire, and then we'll open the floor for any questions. So, obviously, we've got the Application Help Center, which is available for you to utilise for any assistance. We've also got community forums, so that, the learn, the discussions, and the idea exchange, which is really powerful, and vote on potential future enhancements to the tool. As we said before, our Getting Started guide is now online, so we'll probably get the configuration guides on there at some point as well. But for now, we've got the Get Started guide, which gives you a nice in-depth look at the overview of how the tool works aligned to the various processes. And also on the community forum, the PDF versions are also available. Okay, and if you've got any configuration use cases you'd like to share, no matter what kind of level or complexity they are, feel free to contact Tonya, and we can work with you potentially to present that at a future session. Producer, have we had any questions?
No questions at this point, so
okay.
We can always open up for live questions, or if people are shy and don't want to come out of mute, they can also post.
Yep, and also if you haven't got any questions, obviously just use the chat window and obviously put in some details, just answer a quick survey, just a bit about yourself, your experience based on those different levels. Bit of feedback about today has been useful. Has given you sort of a good overview of incident management, maybe giving you some ideas of potentially how you use some of those configuration use cases you could do. And also let us know potentially what you'd like to see in a future session. So I'll just leave that up for a moment while we wait.
So you can post your answers in the chat. And so I did get one privately with a 1B, 2A, 3 very fast.
Yes.
4 question mark.
Okay. Okay.
Another one, 1C, 2A, 3A, 4A. Okay.
All right. That's good. That's good. And I say, in regards to, yes, I think Brindosa knows that I talk quite quickly. So obviously we'll make the recording available so you can watch it at your own pace. Maybe even slow me down.
And another one with 1C, 2A, 3A, and 4B.
Okay.
Good. So it looks like we're achieving the goals here, so that's good to hear. So also feel free to come out of mute if you have any comments, any questions you'd like to bring up. Okay. Any other slides left, Dean?
No, I think. Oh yeah, of course. Probably one of the most important ones. So next sessions. So the next session, obviously in 2 weeks, is 4th of July. So we've actually got that one cancelled because of obviously the US holiday. People like myself, that's kind of quite nice. Get a break for a change. And then on the 18th, we're going to do a focus on SMAX Studio. So I'm going to run a session showing the new feature from the May release, our SMAX Studio. We're going to run through a couple of example apps that I've built. Including as part of it, you'll be able to see the results of our World Cup app that I built to go through the results of the World Cup and see it in its final form. So that I'm hoping to be a really good session and show you actually how much power we've got now in SMAX with the new capabilities of the May release. And obviously, recordings will be are available. We'll get this one uploaded, I'd have thought in the next day or two, onto the Learn site for you to be able to watch again. That's it.
Okay. Any last minute questions, feedback before we wrap up? Okay. If not, thank you very much for attending. I hope it was a useful session and looking forward to seeing you next time on July 18th for a very exciting session and sharing the results of the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you.